Guys, Emma here, also known as 8 Vinyl Low, bringing you guys another video. So today's video, I'm thinking about doing a quick update over the past week in terms of what I've been up to regarding concerts that I've attended and vinyl that I've kind of accumulated at a few record stores over this past week. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with a quick vinyl update here from a couple weeks ago that I haven't shown you guys yet. But I recently picked up a copy, a picture disc of Cheap Trick's One on One record. One on One was released in 1982, and it is the first record that Cheap Trick put out with John Brandt here. He ended up replacing the bassist who started with Cheap Trick and is now again with Cheap Trick, Tom Peterson. But yeah, John Brandt replaced him when Tom Peterson went out and did some other things. He released like a solo album and stuff. So John Brandt ended up recording a few more records with Cheap Trick, but One on One was the first. Anyway, so picked up this picture disc at my local shop. They had actually made a Facebook post saying that they just got this in, and I immediately jumped on it because I didn't have this yet. I knew of it, but I didn't have it. And so it was like 20 bucks or something, but super cool to add to my Cheap Trick collection. So I thought I'd start the video out with something cool like this. So, also have a quick update, thanks to Steve Carlson. Everybody knows Steve in the VC, but for some odd reason that you don't, I'll have his channel link in the description below. But I was watching one of Steve's videos, as I always do on Sunday when he posts them, and he had talked about an album, a Record Store Day release that he recently picked up that I had no idea was released on Record Store Day. I don't know if I just didn't see it. I know my store didn't have it, and I don't remember seeing it on the list either. So my mind was blown when I saw Steve talking about this because I love this band. I'll give you guys a hint. Let's see if you can guess it before I show it. It is a post-punk band from the 1980s. They weren't around too long, from Boston, Massachusetts. Anybody know? It is Mission of Burma. Peking Spring. They had released this for the first time on vinyl for Record Store Day, and I had no clue about it until I saw Steve's video. Steve does this record more justice than I could in explaining the band and explaining this record, so I won't repeat any of it because you can go watch his video of him talking about it. Extremely smart and knowledgeable about this, but great post-punk band from the 1980s, and super happy to grab this. I actually found this online for like 12 bucks free shipping, so it's a really good deal, and I jumped on this right away after seeing it in Steve's video. So thank you, Steve, for making me spend more money. So pick this up. But continuing on with Steve Carlson, he also showed a interesting book that immediately caught my eye, and I ended up going to my half-price books and seeing if they had a copy, and they did, for $4.99, and that is 1971, Never a Dull Moment, Rock's Golden Year, by David Hepworth. Steve had shown this as well in a recent video, and I told him I'm going to keep an eye out for this because it sounded extremely interesting. I think he like bought 2 copies of it too and didn't even know that he had one already, so it's that good. But it's basically about the year 1971, how it was a very influential year in terms of rock music. And my favorite probably decade of music is the 70s, so this caught my eye and I definitely picked it up when I saw it. So excited to give this a read. This is next on my list, so I will let you guys know how I liked it. So yeah, grabbed this. I recommend it. Although I have not read it, but it looks great. Alright, so continuing on with this update, over the past week it has been my summertime Cheap Trick week. I have seen Cheap Trick 3 times in the past week because they have been playing extremely close to where I live. So I saw Cheap Trick last Friday. They played the Genesee Theater. I had 4th row seats for that show. Awesome venue. I'm not used to seeing them in like a theater type venue. I like to go see them when they play GA places and stuff like that. But great, you know, great venue, great sound. The set list was amazing. And I ended up actually after the show going to the back because I saw some people hanging around the tour bus, and I met Cheap Trick. It wasn't my first time meeting them. I actually met them in a meet and greet once. Like, I paid for it on my 21st birthday a couple years ago. So it wasn't my first time meeting them per se, but it was my first time meeting them like after a show, outside of paying for it. So that was really neat. Amazing guys. I mean, I wouldn't be a fan if they were complete dicks, you know. It makes it so much better when you really love the band and everybody in the band are good guys, or girls. So, but yeah, they all came out and spent probably 10-15 minutes with everyone, signing stuff, taking pictures. It was awesome. So that was a great experience. And then I ended up seeing them the next night, last Saturday, in New Lenox, Illinois. They played a small outdoor venue, GA. So I waited in the line a little bit, got front row barricade for that. That was really cool because the set list was amazing for that show, and that was just an extremely small outdoor space. So it was a very intimate concert. So that was awesome. And then just this past Thursday, I saw them play in Madison, Wisconsin at a new venue called the Sylvie. And that was an amazing show as well. Actually, Rick's son, Miles Nielsen, has a band called Miles Nielsen and the Rusted Hearts. And that band opened for Cheap Trick, and then Cheap Trick played for like 2 hours. Awesome show. I had waited a really long time for that show because it was GA, so I waited like 4 hours. But it paid off in the end because I did get front row again. I know I'm a little crazy, but I will do that for Cheap Trick as they are my favorite band. So, but really cool experiences, and with seeing them in all of these venues and places, I was able to take time to stop at some different record stores and keep building up my record collection that way. So yeah, so I thought I'd show you guys actually. At the Madison show, at the very end of the concert, Dax Nielsen, who is now the drummer, who is also Rick Nielsen's son, threw me his drumstick. So that's really cool. It has a Cheap Trick logo on the side and says his name. So this is awesome. Definitely something cool for my collection. And then Miles Nielsen, who, like I said, opened with his band, The Rusted Hearts, threw me his guitar pick. And if you guys know or watched my intro video, you know that I collect guitar picks, so this was really cool to get from him. And I'm only going to show you one, but I probably got around in 3 shows, probably close to 20 or so Rick Nielsen guitar picks. If you guys know Cheap Trick at all or have seen them live, you know that Rick Nielsen throws them out by the handful. Literally, during Dream Please, he grabs handfuls and throws them out. So that's when I've accumulated them most of the time. Although I did get hit in the eye with one at New Lenox, which hurt a lot. But got a fair share of these, but I thought I'd show you what they kind of look like. So, but now kind of going back to records, because that's probably why most of you are watching. We'll get into what I've accumulated in terms of that. First thing I want to show you guys is this band called Strapping Owls, and this is their new record released this year, I think, called Live Wire Soul, live from Michigan. This guy right here, his name is Nick Barron. He opened, just him, not this band, he opened for Cheap Trick at the Genesee Theater in Waukegan. I've never heard of him, and I didn't know what to expect, but it was awesome. Very bluesy, soulful sounding voice. I think he had opened for like B.B. King and James Taylor and people like that, so it's kind of that kind of sound. But yeah, I was blown away by his voice, blown away by what he was performing, and he said that he had copies of his band's record for sale. So after the show, I definitely jumped on this. It was like $15, but I'm excited to give this a listen because I really liked what I heard at the show. So we'll see how it sounds. But yeah, support your local musicians. Support your local musicians. They need it, and they enjoy it too. So grab this. Also, got my copy of Heavy Metal signed. This is again Miles Nielsen and the Rested Hearts, the band that opened for Cheap Trick in Madison, and then Miles Nielsen is also Rick Nielsen's son. This is from their 2016 release, Heavy Metal. Show you guys that. I love this record, but I was able to get all of them to sign it. After the show, they stayed by the merch booth and were very graciously taking pictures with fans and signing stuff. So it wasn't the first time I've seen them. I've seen them before and I've met them before, but it's the first time that I've gotten their record signed. So excited to have this. Yeah, it looks cool. So grab that. So as I was saying, going to all of these different venues in different cities, I was able to check out some different record stores. And so the first batch of records I'm going to show you are records that I picked up in Madison, Wisconsin, at a record store. I think it was called Strictly Discs. Amazing store. If you're ever in Madison, make sure that you check out Strictly Discs, because it has a whole upstairs, a whole downstairs, and that basement's just filled with great stuff. Great prices, great condition. So check them out if you're ever in Madison. But first record I picked up there is Guitar Boogie with Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. This is like a blues rock compilation that they did that was released in 1971. I have a US reissue here, but I love all three guitarists. I love Clapton, I love Beck, and I love Page. So I didn't know anything about this record until I saw it in the store, and it was like $6, and I could not resist because I absolutely love the work of all three of these artists. So I think after more research, they did stuff on this record with the All-Stars, and even some stuff with the Rolling Stones, I think. So excited to try this out. So grab that. Also grabbed, you guys will know this one, Rolling Stones Black and Blue. Yeah, I almost said black or blue. Black and Blue. For those of you who have been watching my videos, you know I've been trying to build up my Rolling Stones collection. So found this for I think like $5 at that Strictly Discs in great condition. Gatefold. You all know this record. This is when Mick Taylor left and they were finding the replacement and ended up getting Ron Wood. A lot of stuff was going on at the time with Richards, and even Mick Jagger was kind of getting into his celebrity phase, so to say. So an interesting album, a a great record and another great addition to my Rolling Stones collection, my ever-growing Stones collection. So, still from that Strictly Discs, I picked up The Who, Meaty Beaty Big and Bouncy. This is the 1971 singles compilation that they released that kind of highlights the best of The Who in terms of the singles that they've released in, you know, the 60s. So, another great find because I love The Who and I just didn't have this one yet. I don't have a lot of The Who stuff, still kind of building that up. But this is a good compilation album to add to the collection. Speaking of 1971, Steve, So yeah. So it has The Kids Are Alright on here, I Can See for Miles, Pinball Wizard. Great compilation. So I have that. Sticking on with Strictly Discs, I finally have Lennon's and Ono's Double Fantasy record. This wasn't one that I, you know, was like at the top of my want list, but I grabbed it because it was like $4 at the record store. But I also grabbed it because it has some Cheap Trick history behind it. I wonder if any of you kind of know this story. So, Cheap Trick history with this record. So, Lennon knew of Rick Nielsen, who is the guitarist of Cheap Trick, and he had actually requested that Rick Nielsen come in and play on this album. And so Nielsen, obviously, Lennon being one of his heroes, said yes. Also being Lennon. But yes, said yes. And Lennon had asked him to play on the song I'm Losing You. And Rick said, of course. And he said, you know, my drummer at Cheap Trick in the time was Bunny Carlos. He said, can we, you know, use Bunny? Lennon said yes. So they had actually recorded Rick, Bunny, and Lennon, I'm Losing You. And supposedly Lennon loved it, but other people said that it was too hard sounding, that it was way too hard sounding. And so they ended up scrapping that recording with Rick and Bunny and doing the recording that is now on this record. But originally, yes, Rick Nielsen and Bunny Carlos from Cheap Trick were recorded with Lennon, I'm Losing You, and were supposed to be on this record, but it didn't work out. And actually, when I saw Cheap Trick in New Lenox, there was an opening band who did covers from the 60s and 70s, and I guess the 80s, because that album's 1980, and they performed Lennon's I'm Losing You, and Rick Nielsen actually came out during the opening act and played that song, so that was super cool. Anyway, moving along here, also picked up Jeff Beck's There and Back record. What's really cool about this one is that it is a promo. Just another Jeff Beck that I didn't have already, and I think it was like $5 or $6. And it was cool too because it was a promo copy, so yeah, grab this one. Alright, for those who saw my last video, you know I am really getting into this individual. It is the godfather of British blues, John Mayall. This is his release called A Hardcore Package. I think it was released in 1977, so, you know, not his most famous work by any means. This was picked up actually, now we're off Strictly Discs, this was picked up at Reckless Records in Chicago. But it was like $4 and it's John Mayall, so I picked it up. Excited to listen to it. I haven't listened to this record before, so like I said, not his most famous by any means, but still John Mayall. And And what's cool about this one as well is that it's a demo copy. So I didn't buy it for that reason, but it's just cool anyway. I also picked up John Mayall's Moving On. I think this is from 73, let's see, 72 it says on the back here. It's still in the shrink. As you can guys see, it's kind of ripped, so I might take that off. But it is a live album from 72. That kind of British bluesy sound. This one's a little more well-known Mayall, so I know I've heard of this before, so happy to have picked this up. Alright, moving right along. Love this band. Love the early stuff of this band. Finally have Savoy Brown's Hellbound Train. Arguably one of their best albums. A lot of people will say this is their best album. This is from 1972. So grab this, cool gatefold. Yeah, early Savoy Brown is awesome stuff when it comes to British blues. So their later stuff, but their early stuff is really great, and so is this record. I have Street Corner Talking, which is one of my favorite Savoy Brown albums already, and I also had Raw Sienna. But I was able to grab this one, so it adds to kind of my early Savoy Brown collection, as well as another album that people will say might be their best, their record Looking In. And actually this record, if I'm not mistaken, was the last one that featured members who would eventually go on to form Foghat. Featured Roger Earl on drums and of course Lonesome Dave later on go to form Foghat, but great record. So if you like British blues and you don't really listen to Savoy Brown, I recommend it. Right down your alley if you're into that stuff, so especially the early stuff. Alright, also picked up, because I can't leave it behind even though I already have it, Cheap Trick's 1977 debut record. It has my favorite Cheap Trick song on it, which is Taxman. And they actually played it, I think, at 2 of the shows that I went to, and they rarely play it, so that's awesome that I was able to hear it a couple times live. But yeah, picked this up. It was like $4, and I'm not going to leave Cheap Trick for $4, so have another copy of that. Went to Dave's Records downtown Chicago as well, and they had this copy of Miles Nielsen, going back to Miles Nielsen now, and the Rusted Hearts, their debut album from 2012 that I cannot find anywhere. And they actually had a copy of this at the record store, so I jumped right on it. It was like 14 bucks or something, but it is extremely hard to find, so no problem. Very cool gatefold here. And if you do not know anything of Miles Nielsen, I definitely recommend checking out his music. I think it's like milesnielsen.com. He's probably like on Apple Music and Spotify and stuff, so definitely check him out, and if you like it, go ahead and support him. But like I said, this one's hard to find, but I think Heavy Metal's on his website, so go ahead and take a listen and buy it if you like it. Really quickly here, going through these, picked up a reissue, of course, of the Velvet Underground and Nico. Just one that I really wanted in my collection, and came to terms with the fact that I will not get an OG of this one anytime soon. So went with the reissue, just happy to have this and be able to listen to it. Actually, Tom Peterson and Cheap Trick, he's the bassist of Cheap Trick, and Cheap Trick, they do a cover of Heroin and I'm Waiting for the Man. That's awesome. So if you haven't heard that cover by Cheap Trick, those 2 songs, I recommend listening to it. But yeah, picked up this reissue, excited to listen. Alright, 2 more. Building up my Blue Oyster Cult stuff. I'm actually seeing them with Joan Jett in July, so next month. Picked up the classic Agents of Fortune by Blue Oyster Cult. It has Don't Fear the Reaper on it. Picked this up for like $3. Befold. Everybody knows this record. As well as their album Secret Treaties. So got this for the low as well. But just continuing to build up my collection of theirs. I picked up Some Enchanted Evening for the Record Store Day release Black Friday last year. So continuing to have more of their stuff in the collection is the game plan. So anyway, finally we have reached the end of this video. That's all I have in terms of kind of an update from this week. I do have a lot of videos planned though. I have some Goodwill hauls that I want to post, some Goodwill and Salvation Army hauls that'll go up within the next few weeks. And you'll kind of see what cool stuff I got there. I'm also on Instagram now, so feel free to check out my Instagram. I'll leave a link below to my Instagram, but it's basically just 8 Vinyl Low, same as my YouTube channel. So anyway, with that, that is all I have for you guys for this video. I know this one ran a little longer, so sorry about my endless blabbering there. But I wish you all a great week, and I will see you guys for my next video. And Tim, this high five is for you at the end. Bye guys.